Hello, folks. My name is Rick Pearson, and this is Prophecy USA, a program specifically designed to unveil the hidden mystery of America's role in Bible prophecy. Our guest tonight is the host and the executive producer of two Victory Channel original programs, Flashpoint and Revival Radio. He also serves as executive director of Kenneth Copeland Ministries and Victory Channel, both based in Fort Worth, Texas. And through the hit television program Flashpoint, Gene Bailey hosts a variety of guests, thought leaders, politicians, including the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. He covers current events and critical issues in the program. Now, this live news and commentary television program airs 3 times a week on Victory Channel, multiple social media streams, and syndicated stations, with a typical audience of more than 1 million social media viewers. Now, Gene's latest venture is a new book co-authored with his wife, Terry, called Killing America, Turning the Tide on the Tsunami of Darkness. And in Killing America, Gene and Terry drill down into the anti-God attack on this nation and pinpoint godly, common sense strategies to restore and uphold truth and freedom. Through Flashpoint and Flashpoint live events nationwide, Gene and Terry speak to thousands, inspiring audiences and equipping them with the tools they need to bring hope and help to their families, their communities, and especially to this great nation that we call the United States of America. Gene and Terry Bailey, it is a high honor to welcome you to Prophecy USA. Folks, I've read your book, Killing America, and I think our viewers are going to love the content of what you and Terry have discovered over the last 4 years in a national and international ministry. Now, between the two of you, what was the number one motivation behind writing this book?
You know, right now we are seeing out of biblical proportions, things going on in our culture that we never even could imagine. And Gene and I talk about it. And, you know, when you're having trouble sleeping at night because what you see going on and you love the people and they're not aware of what's going on and they're not involved, and you know that if they were, that we could turn it around, it was grievous to us to not do something to help turn this around for Christ.
Yeah, and you know what Terry said, absolutely. But the other side of this is we felt like I'm constantly saying to Terry, I don't feel like we're doing enough. I don't feel like we're doing enough. I don't feel like we're doing enough. We've got to do more. Got to do more. And I think imagine if all of us felt that way that are believers about what's going on here. The first book we did was called Flashpoint of Revival. And I think it was a great book, and it did well, but I realized something about it had the word revival in the title. So a lot of people never picked it up. So we wanted a book that would make people pick it up. You know, and there's nothing more brazen than a title, Killing America, to make go, well, what is that? Now,
Exactly.
Some of my Word of Faith Christian friends were a little like, I don't think that's a great confession. Like, no, it's not. But this is the reality of where we are. The working title of it was Tsunami Rising, which is what I wanted to call it originally. And they said the publisher felt like didn't give enough headroom into what it was. Because I believe we're dealing with a tsunami of darkness, Rick, and we cannot just wait around and hope things get better. And that's what just absolutely drives us, is like we must see people activated. We must see people motivated and doing what they can do. We've been in church our whole lives, a lot of us, and we're all part of the body, and we've got to do our part of the body, but yet we're waiting on you to do yours so I don't have to do mine. And we can't do that anymore. It's really that bad. And if we don't stand up now, there won't be a nation to turn to a year from now.
Yes. Well, on page 29, this is what you say. The forces of darkness are not out to merely change America and make her over by implementing their own progressive agenda. They want America as we know it destroyed, including your freedoms. And so something entirely new and extremely dark can be ushered in. What is it that the progressive woke agenda is trying to usher in to America?
Well, they're ushering in the darkness. The total darkness that we're seeing is what the agenda is. And I think that's hard for us to actually comprehend, that they're really, we've grown up pretty much. Anybody that's alive today has had it pretty good. Now, I know my parents were children, and yours were children of the Depression. So they were better at saving, better at being more frugal with their expenses. But after that, the next generation, the baby boomers on through, we've lived a good lifestyle. And for those that have never traveled outside the United States, we think, well, this is the way everybody is. And the truth is, that's unusual. America is very blessed. It's blessed because of what we committed to God so many years ago. However, we're at risk of losing that. And when we say losing that, most people disengage at that point, Rick, because they don't believe that it's really that bad. That's what I've come to understand. I'm like, are you not watching? Are you not paying attention? You know, when COVID came to America, like it did the rest of the world, our collective eyes were open. The veil was lifted, and we're like, wait a minute. There are pharmaceutical companies that really don't want to see me well. They just want to treat me.
They want money.
Now we're seeing the proof of that. And now back then we were called election deniers. Yes, that's a whole other topic. But we're vaccine deniers or COVID deniers. I mean, we've been talked about by doctors and hospitals, and we've lost family members, and it's a horrible tale. Just like so many people that are watching have gone through. Yeah. There's a dark agenda, and I believe Americans right now and Canadians are understanding this really is bad. Think about this. When 9/11 happened in New York, we just thought it was a terrible thing, and it is, and it was. Now that happens today, we're questioning everything. Who really did it? Who was really behind it? Who on our side was behind it? That's something Americans never thought of, because we believed at the top of the government chain, and there were some good people, and there are, but pretty much everybody's there for the right reasons. Well, we found out that's not the truth. And that's why this darkness, it's the ultimate fight. It's not right versus left. It's up versus down. Which side are you going to be on? The devil wants to consume you, and he's going to do that every means he can. If that means consuming America, the government, and forcing you into a police state, guess what? That's what he wants to do. He's not in it for your prosperity and your abundance. He's in it to take you down. That's my thought. Yours?
Well, in addition to what Gene said, because we think alike on these topics and a lot of most everything, but it's a lot of times, and we had trouble within the church. Y'all are just conspiracy theorists. And the truth is, I mean, for instance, we're seeing RFK say that there's chemtrails. And people used to say, no, there's not. And there was a woman that just was working for the government that came out of it and said it is a real thing. And they're actually putting metals. People are trying to raise gardens, but they've got metals coming down, and they're trying to purposely poison us. So we need to realize, and we should have realized, we came out of our age group was like, if it was an authority figure, you were taught to obey and respect.
Yes.
But we need to not only do that, there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to think on our own. We need to ask questions constantly. And if it doesn't make sense, there's a reason for it. And what Gene was saying, it's the truth. Now, because of everything that's happened to us during this last 4 years, we're going back and we're looking back at 9/11 and going, and then we're going back to the assassination of Kennedy and going, and looking at all the details, which we should not, no one should trust their family, their country, to give no holds bar without questioning what's going on. We need to be involved in every aspect, and we do have the authority. We are the righteousness of Christ. And so we need to be involved in every aspect of every of the 7 mountains we talk about in there too, and the gates, which I think we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but we need to be involved in all of it till Jesus comes back and says, excuse me, it's time to go. So that occupy till he comes. Luke 19:13 is what we talk about all the time. Occupy is kind of a military term when we're not talking to go to war of arms, but we're talking about taking a position of authority and saying, you know, we're saying this is right, this is wrong, you can do this, you can't do that. And to not expect a leader to take all the responsibility for your life, we need to be involved.
Would it be fair to say that the woke agenda wants a world without God, a world without the 10 Commandments, a world without the Bible? That's what we're fighting.
Well,
Yes,
the ultimate evil that we're seeing, if you want to talk it in political terms that people understand, is we're looking at Marxism, we're talking about communism, and communism does not like Christians. Let's face it. And if you're talking about the Muslim invasion that we're seeing like often now, there's Sharia law. You know, we've had pushed through our youth, TikTok and other social media. We have had pushed the transgender and the gay agenda, but Sharia law that means execution.
Mm-hmm.
That means, why is it that it seems with the influx of the people across the border that we are seemingly being replaced by people from other countries, and they're reproducing, they're coming to our country, they're taking and occupying our territories, but we're told to sterilize ourselves. We're told to abort our own. We're killed off with fentanyl. Why is that? And so what we've seen, these trends, we're going, somebody is out to kill the freedom. And when you see a country that is dedicated to God, like we have been, you see prosperity. Mm-hmm. And when you see a third world country, you can just know that they have no respect or place in their country for God.
Yes. For the value system of America.
That's right.
So those are the assaults that you see are being used to try and kill America. Now, on page 50, you talk about the body of Christ needing to get skin into the game, referencing Nehemiah. So the question is this: can you expound upon Nehemiah and how do we get skin into the game? How do we make a difference to come against this darkness? And you say that Nehemiah stepped up so that the wrath of God could be turned around. If we can act like Nehemiah, you said the wrath of God can be turned away from America and freedom will reign. Can you expound upon that, Nehemiah?
Yeah, and Nehemiah's wall, he went there but no one was doing anything. There was utter desolation. And I love the story of Nehemiah because he says, wait, there's something here we need to do. Let's get in it. And he gets everybody he gets the nation to help. But what the best part of that, and I was reading it at 2:00 this morning, believe it or not. I was up reading Nehemiah again. He goes and it wasn't just him that built the wall. It wasn't just a group of guys. They just kind of went down the road. It was so-and-so. If you go read all those begats that we all like to skip over and all those little historical, it's talking about this guy built the wall behind his house, and this one rebuilt the wall, and this one redid the gate, the eastern gate, the dung gate, the sheep gate. It was everybody working together. And I think that's what we should take away from that, is that when we all work together, we don't have to all agree. We get something done that we can't get done otherwise. Who was his biggest detractors? It was his own people. The church came against him from the beginning. What are you doing? Don't be doing that. You're wasting time. The wall's not going to work. It's not going to be that good. And so then they have to fight. And then they have to fight the enemy. Then there's a point where it's like, this might actually happen. He might actually get the wall built, Rick. What are we going to do then? And I believe we're at that point. Americans don't really understand or believe like we really can turn America, and it's like the picture on the book here is the Statue of Liberty underwater, but yet
Yes.
her hand or the torch is burning brighter than ever, and it's not doused yet. And that's what we need to understand. We have a role to play. It's not over. The devil, the enemy, wants to make you think it's over, it's done. The crazy people are taking over, and come on, Lord Jesus. And I can't tell you how many churches, how many pastors are preaching, well, this is it. We're just pretty much are preaching, let's just lock in and, hold hands, and hopefully Jesus will come. The second coming will happen quicker. And that's just, we've got to occupy. That's why Terry's saying about the occupy. Everybody came together to build the wall. It's when we come together, put our silly differences aside, and understand, hey, you may be Church of God, I may be Assembly of God. You may be this, you may be that. If we believe Jesus is Lord, he went to the cross, he died for our sins, he rose again, and he's come to get us, I can work with you. We don't need to debate theological terms. I need you to help me save America right now. And that's been, Rick, I can't tell you. I know we've talked about this in person. It's
Yes.
my biggest challenge. The biggest challenge isn't the world. It isn't the heathens, because they know something's wrong. They don't know what it is. It's the church that, well, we don't want God to move that way. We want him to move this way. And he surely can't move through you. He needs to work through our denomination. And boy, there's something that goes in the side of me that gets pretty riled up. But we must understand it's all of us working together that's going to change this thing. The force of darkness knows if I can get you separated, if I can get division in there, then you're not going to get stuff done. And that's what they did when they attacked. But look at what happened when they attacked the workers on the wall. The scripture tells us they were putting bricks on the wall with one hand and fighting with their sword with the other. That was part of it. But then there were also groups that would move from place to place. Joe's having a problem over at his house. Let's go defend the wall while he builds his. Yeah. They would go do that, then go move to the other side. It's when we start working as a unit for a common goal, suddenly things change and our world changes. And that's what we have to see. We have to see that happen in America. But it's not going to happen as long as we're busy fighting ourselves. I remember I'll say this one before you move on. A friend of mine, Mylon Lefebvre, went to heaven.
Yes.
But I was complaining to him about some church people about 30 years ago. And I was saying, Mylon, now I'm from Georgia, so I can talk like a Georgian, from the great Empire State of the South. And I said, Mylon, they're doing this, this, and this. And man, I was pouring out my case about some good-hearted Christians that were giving me a hard time. Yes. Mylon looks at me lets me go through the whole thing as a good friend does. And he goes, well, brother, look what they did to Jesus. All he did was love people, and they killed him. And I'm like, you're not helping me. You're not helping me. That's not what I need to hear. I need to, the reality is we're in a battle, and it's not comfortable on the front lines. So we need to get rid of this comfortable Christianity mindset that says we got to be able to fight from air conditioning and everything work great, and everybody love us and our bank account be full and no one ever come against us. That's just not. I love it when that happens, but that's not the determining factor of the war that we're in. This is just a battle. The war is the ultimate battle of good versus evil. We know who wins. We just need to all get there together.
And we need to have the spirit of David. When David was out there in the valley, he was swinging that sling, and he was willing to die, but he was going to go down swinging. And I think that's where God wants us. Whenever the rapture takes place, he wants a warrior bride that's willing to go down swinging. And we confess, and we confess him, and we're warriors. Now you've got in chapter 4, it's called Drawing the Line. And this is what you state.
Can I talk about David? Yes,
real quick? Go ahead. Because
you bring that up, because this is another one of my favorite stories. It's great. You're absolutely right, Rick. But what we seem to forget, David kills Goliath. It's wonderful. Then he has about 20 years of a really bad life, where Saul's after him trying to kill him. We love to tell the story of David killing Goliath. We don't like to tell the rest of the story where he was dodging spears in Saul's house and them chasing him down, and he's living like a crazy man out in the fields just so that they'll leave him alone. All of this, we love this side of it. We don't like the other side. It's going to take all of that. So that's my story. All right,
well, I'll tell you what, on Prophecy USA, I understand what it's like to dodge some spears.
Yes.
Since I started for 4 years, I know exactly what you're talking about, and people misinterpret what you're trying to say. But anyway, on chapter 4, drawing the line, you say throughout the Bible, God's faithful have drawn lines to take stands or step up into action. When they did, there was always a risk and a cost to pay, yet God always showed up in different ways that impacted change. Can you give us some examples throughout history, how God showed up in history to impact change?
Go ahead.
Well, to start with, if you're talking biblically, okay, biblically, you can go back to Daniel in the lion's den. I'm gonna pray. I don't give a rip. Okay, and then you look at Daniel, and you look at Joseph. And the thing is not only that too, is like when we're talking about the women in the Bible driving a tent peg through, I mean, that was put your life on the line, because if he woke up, you were in trouble because he's going to overpower you. So same thing for following Christ, that we've got to put it all on the line. And if you're not willing to give up your life for Christianity and for Christ, then you're not a real Christian. And that's the truth. You got to get to the place where you've decided, okay, am I going to follow him? Am I going to love what he loves and I'm going to hate what he hates? Or am I going to kind of compromise and go the easy route and do what the world's doing? Because I don't know if I may lose some members. And then another thing, when we were talking about the last question, in addition to, it's a misnomer that, you've got a podcast show, Rick. Jean's got a platform. Well, what about a little old lady that's sitting in church and she's got a walker, but she does have a voice? There are no superstars in God's kingdom. He talks about the body, the hands, the feet, the brains, so anybody that's on this planet from 5 to 125, there is a job and a role for them to fulfill, and they cannot be misled and told that they're not important and they can't get involved. But you're right. We have got to stay and get into the warrior mindset and be able to leave it all on the field for Christ. And if we're not, then what good is our salvation?
And all throughout the Bible, God uses the little people. He pulls them out of the backwoods. They come out of nowhere. I don't know what I just did there, but I had something come raining down
That was
on
good.
me. Now I just lost my earpiece. So anyway, I forgot what I was going to say.
He used
God always uses, I said the other day, as long as you can speak, as long as you can say in the name of Jesus, people can get healed. People can come out of wheelchairs. All he needs is somebody to come in faith with him and speak, and he will act on that word.
Amen.
Now, Jean, after the November 3rd, 2020 presidential election, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I shared with you on the telephone, we were talking about the election, and I said to you, I really believed that the November 3rd, 2020 election was a spiritual coup d'etat of America, and they were going to plunge us into darkness. Now, on page 57, this really sparked my interest. You stated this: it will take standing in faith, trusting God, and a lot of wrestling and spiritual warfare, but we can wrestle control in prayer back from the administration of darkness. What happens in the spiritual realm establishes itself in the natural world. Here's the question. Do you think America can come back to where she was before the November 3rd, 2020 election? Do you think she can come back to that point?
I want to give you the answer you don't think is coming. No. And here's why. I don't think so, because she needs to be better than what she was November 3rd, 2020.
Exactly.
We can never, I mean, once your eyes have been opened, you can't go unsee some things you've seen. So
Yes.
I believe America can be restored, yes, but I don't think we will ever go back to the way it was. Let's talk about COVID. COVID happened, churches shut down, and then suddenly churches were like going, no, wait a minute. I can go to the Home Depot or the liquor store, but I can't go to church. We're going to have church. We'll do it in the parking lot. And so people were having drive-in churches. And so, and people started waking up about, and past some never woke up and closed their doors and decided to be online the whole time.
4,000 churches. 4,000 churches have closed in North America.
Isn't that crazy? So there's two types of people. Two. There's two types of people out there. There's the one back then we were ecstatic. We're going, finally, this is going to wake up the church. It's horrible about COVID, but this is waking up the church to do something, to be a force in America. But then we found out there were two types of people. Ones that wanted church to go back the way it used to be, and ones like us that said, I don't want to ever go back to the way it used to be. There's got to be something fresh. There's got to be something new. We cannot live like that any longer. That's not working. I don't need a motivational message from a cool hip pastor. I need to, what do I do? Do I take this vaccine? How do I handle this? How do I stand in faith in the midst of what's coming at us? So yes, it can turn around, but we're not looking for that. We're looking to go higher, not back to ground zero. We need to go higher in that. And I believe America can. I believe the world can. But it's going to take all of us standing in faith, yes. But standing in faith isn't just going, I'm standing in faith and praying that.
A confession.
When you say you're standing in faith, the enemy will test you. Like, oh, yeah? Well, what about what happens to your child? Or, oh, yeah, what happens if you lose your house? Are you standing in faith now? There's a lot to when you say stand in faith, you better be ready, because people are going to come against you. They're going to call you names. I was surprised. I learned from Mike Lindell to enjoy when they call you names, because that means you're in the press. So suddenly being a Christian nationalist, a Christo-fascist, right winger, ultra right winger, all these horrible names they would come up with, wait a minute, that's okay. That means the world is tuning in. And to this day, if I'm not in the press somewhere on some rogue website complaining about who we are, then I'm not doing my job. I've learned to understand to be uncomfortable or be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's what we need to do to understand. We must get out of this weak Christianity that America especially has bought into. And when I say weak, I'm saying we have looked at church as a four-wall social club. And, Mario Murillo used to say it this way, and we put it in the first book, big screens, skinny jeans, and fog machines is what we became, church became. That's never going to win the world. When you're dealing with stuff, that's never going to happen. We've got to have the power of God. We got to have the love of God, but we got to see the power of God, and that's our job.
Well, and Gene, what you said too, that everything, Rick, everything's been shaken.
Yes, it is.
Okay, your eyes have been opened. We were praying, oh Lord, let's fix this. Help us fix this. And it's like, really? How much stuff have we got? You look at all the alphabet agencies. Our eyes have been opened. Do we want them the way they are? Do we want the school boards the way they are? No, we do not believe that church happens inside four walls. We are the church. We need to go out and affect community. So everything the way that it used to be, we don't want to go back to that. And not only that, too, we were shocked. You remember the days where you were a party and you just, I'm voting the party ticket. Then we found out there's the uniparty. There's people that have been bought out on all sides. And so you got to think. You got to think, and you got to look and do your research for each candidate, what they voted for and what they stand for. So we don't ever want things to go back the way they were, because we asked to have the swamp cleared out. That's we right. Just had no idea the level of filth that we
deprivation
were living in.
We didn't know the
Yes.
swamp was in our own backyard.
Yeah. On page 91, you talk about a 90-year-old woman by the name of Mila. And she was a friend of yours, a friend of a friend of yours, and she escaped communism at 80 years old. And she told your friend the same things I saw back then, shortly before the fall of before the fall of our nation into communism, I see happening now in America. We must stop it. What were some of the things that Mila saw back then that's happening right now in the USA?
Well, the first thing it was the loss of freedom of speech.
Freedom
When
of
they start,
speech.
you
First
start
thing.
to first thing is you see that's the thing that's when we start to lose that, when they start to censor you and say no, you need to do that, or phrases like the for the common good, let's for all people, equality, these any of those terms, sustainability, equality, equity, inclusion, all those terms are have their basis in communism, Marxist society.
What is that saying that the candidate, the female candidate, uses over and over again that people think is word soup, but actually is a Marxist communist term?
We're unburdened by what has been. Um,
And if you
That's a
research
terminology.
that,
yeah,
that
that's
is
Marxist.
a Marxist terminology, and you can search it back to the swastika, okay? Because what they're trying to say is our democracy, our republic is we don't want that anymore. So we're going to be unburdened by it, and we've got this Marxist agenda, this communist agenda that we're going to bring in.
And yeah, and then one of the next things is to totally disengage or demoralize the church, anything to do with
Yes.
Christianity, especially.
And the family.
And the family, the destruction of the family. They all go hand in hand, and they can all happen at the same time. And I think what we've seen is all of that happening right under our noses, but it didn't start in 2020. It started back in the 60s and the 70s when
Yes.
it's very slow, degrading. One of my little soapboxes is television that has slowly, and media, different agencies have done this. They've totally taken the man's role in the home and in life and emasculated the man to be a bumbling idiot, the fool that is out of touch, doesn't understand. And so we've taken men, we've lowered the male population to bumbling idiots. But this goes back to let's talk about Archie Bunker. Yeah. Archie was, kind of a crazy right-wing nut job, and he wasn't very with it. And then we got, but look how long ago that was. And then
20 years ago.
Yeah, it's more than that. But yeah, you got so much more of television that even Tim the Tool Time Taylor, which was a great show, he was the guy that never quite got things right and would blow up something. It was funny, but it plants a seed of this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. He's an idiot. No respect, no honor. So let's raise up. The woman is really the only one that's got it going on. And we in the church kind of bought into that and said, well, yeah, we don't know. Men don't have a place, or we abdicate our roles. And that's the problem. Yeah. When you and I start abdicating our role, and this is not a man versus woman thing, no matter who it is, when you abdicate the role that God's put you in, you're opening the door to the devil you didn't see coming.
Yes. Do you think, Gene, that the majority of Christians understand on a spiritual level what is manifesting in the political arena? I mean, I come out of I was in the secular world for 35 years in several businesses. I have customers calling me now, and they're not born again saved as we would term it, but they're calling me up and they're saying, what in the world's going on, Rick? And I always say, well, you need to get into this book and find out what in the word's going on. But so many Christians are out of touch with reality. Why do you think that is?
Well, we bought the lie. We bought the lie that, of what church is supposed to be. We've embraced a non-functioning, weak church and called it Christianity. But when I read my Bible, when I read history, I don't see weak leaders. You're telling me Saul became Paul and he was weak?
No, he was
John on the
strong.
Isle of Patmos was weak? No, these were strong people that their Christianity cost them something. Um, even Elijah had struggles, but he understood it's going to cost you something. You stand up for God, you're going to be attacked. And the quick answer to that is we have abdicated our roles in the church, and church itself has become weak-minded because we've tried to embrace the world and pull it in and make it an entertainment. And I know that sounds so trite, but it's really what has happened. So now we're trying to get these spiritual giants, and they haven't even been through kindergarten.
Yes.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say we want to be a Timex Christian, takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Those men in the Bible, they paid a tremendous price to deliver this word. They
sure
gave up
did.
their lives. They were not weak people. Now on page 61, this leads us into the next question. You say on page 161, many of those trying to shut down America that we love are quite pious in their own minds and like to puff themselves up as moral, all the while celebrating evil as good and condemning true good as evil, which is a reprobate mind. Do you think our society has become reprobate according to Romans 1? Do you think we've reached that in our society?
Do you think when we can murder babies, children, human beings when they come out of the womb, that's reprobate? Do you think it's reprobate to have sex with animals, to call yourself a woman when you're a man, and and vice versa? We can go on and on. What happened on October 7th in Israel? Is that reprobate?
That's
I think
totally
so.
demonic. Totally demonic.
And there is absolutely, and you can watch a lot of what's going on in the streets, whether it's the UK, the Paris, or Colorado. And when you see people being attacked with whatever they can get their hands on just because they're a certain color, okay, then we've got problems. And I think a lot of colleges and universities teach our kids this touchy-feely. Well, they don't even know the whole story, okay? And we should be kind to everyone. And they think they're going to go up to someone that's been raised in the Middle East and been taught that if you are a Christian or if you are gay, that you are immediately executed and you're going to have a conversation. No, you're going to be attacked and murdered. That's it. Did those people that were at the concert in Israel do anything wrong except that they were born Israelis or were in Israel at an event and were hanging out with Israeli people? So that is very reprobate. I mean, you can look at so many things. A drag queen shaking all kinds of body parts, going nude in parades, and there's parents bringing their kids to that and saying it's okay. I mean, we're at the place, and that's why we wrote the book too, where it's kind of like, come on, you're going to have to be, and Rick, you're thinking about it. It's like, if you call yourself a Christian, do you not fear God? Do you not realize there is an eternity to gain or to lose? It's your eternity forever and ever and ever. And it's like people need to wake up and stop trying to be popular and change with the wind and be double-minded like the Bible tells us not to be. And they need to figure out, because that's where we're at. Which side of the fence are you on? Good or evil?
Folks, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of America's Flashpoint with Gene and Terry Bailey. This week we talked about the darkness in America, but next week we'll be discussing the tsunami of light that many of us are praying for. You folks, we need God's hand to move in America, and Gene and Terry will speak from their hearts of faith in what they believe can happen if God will just give us a Josiah moment in America. This is Prophecy USA. My name is Rick Pearson, reminding you that God is in total control. Jesus Christ is alive, and He's coming back much sooner than many people think. See you next week on Prophecy USA for part 2 of America Flashpoint.